What are the most fun healers to heal with in 10.2? We're gonna be looking at the tier sets that everybody has received. The healing numbers, are that important? They're a little bit important. The damage is maybe not as important as before, and maybe that's great for you since you might not want to do damage, and not to mention some of their utility kits is just crazy, and that's all fine and dandy, but will you enjoy playing any of these healers? And we're of course going to start it off with Resto Druid. This microphone is a little bit off. Resto Druid, not Resto Druid, Resto Shaman. That's what I meant, man. Come on. Now, Resto Shaman is always a fun healer for me to play with. It's a little bit more basic, and it has always been like a basic healer. And maybe that's fine for somebody that just likes to enjoy a chill time and just have fun and just keep people's HP up. This is probably the only intro healer left in the series because it used to share that spot with Holy Priest, which is not the same, I would argue. However, Resto Shaman is decently fun. The tier set is it's okay. You might end up, if you're not gonna like super min-max all of your healing points to get all of that juicy heal out of every little bit of mana, you're probably not gonna care too much. The tier set is gonna be okay, you're gonna do healing with it, but it's likely not going to impact your rotation too much, although you might see more of it in raid since it does actually work towards spreading a lot of Riptides. And Riptide is pretty cool, but it's kind of a boring way to play. You'll still be able to play pretty much what Resto Shaman is. You'll be able to do damage if you don't have anything to heal. It's maybe a better time to actually start playing Resto Shaman if you've never played a healer before, because it doesn't take that much to get into it. The barrier of entry for new players or for players who've never played it before is decently low, where you can enjoy the spec and actually enjoy an okay-ish tier set. However, for me, in terms of excitement, I'm gonna put it into B tier. B tier mostly because I actually love Resto Shaman. It's always one of my top healers to play in terms of its cooldowns, which are still very impactful. And if you are gonna be playing in a group, maybe your active rotation is not that crazy and amazing, but when you put down a Spirit Link, when you pop that Bloodlust, when you use those Cloud Burst totems, I always forget the name of them, you're actually gonna feel the difference, and it's even fun when you get some Dre procs, you know, those Ascendance proc, Deep-Rooted Elements. That's also really cool. But outside of that, for me, it's just way too lackluster. Discipline Priest, however, has been a very incredible experience to heal with it and to test out the new talents, kind of the mini rework that it received in 10.2. And what I'm talking about is Schism and Shadow Covenant becoming passives or being procced by certain things. Specifically, Schism is being procced by Mind Blast, if I'm not mistaken, because every expansion it kind of changes, man. And Shadow Covenant is by Shadow Fiend or Mind Bender, which is what I particularly tested and I found incredibly fun. Mind Bender is way more fun than Shadow Fiend, because that Shadow Covenant mechanic with increasing the damage of all of your shadow spells to have on a 1 minute cooldown or potentially quicker. I think you can reduce the cooldown. You can at least extend my Bender if you play all the way to the bottom right hand side of the talents and get all of the juices up, plus it's good damage and it's fun. It's just an extra layer of fun in terms of its cooldowns. Sure, you can also play with the Ultimate Penance, which is part of the mini rework, where you just have a cool spell. Granted, that doesn't seem to heal that much for how big of a cooldown it is, and from the builds that I was looking at in the healer community, it doesn't seem like you're going to be able to focus really heavily on the penance playstyle, because you can actually reduce the cooldown of ultimate penance by the number of penance you shoot out, but you won't have enough points to fully build up this fantasy. I mean, you can if you just, you know, just strolling around, just doing like small keys and having fun with friends. You can pretty much play anything you want realistically, but if you really want to push yourself, you might not play Ultimate Penance that much. It has a long cast time and it takes a while for the animation to start while it's lifting you up in the air. Although the feeling is cool, it might have worked in BFA and in previous expansions where the healing playstyle and gameplay and design wasn't so fast-paced and high on steroids. It might have been good then because it was a little bit more chill, a little bit more tactical, but now you just have to dish out the stuff really quick, and you cannot really afford about 3 to 4 seconds of not actually impacting your party's HP frames, which is what Ultimate Penance unfortunately does. That aside, what's really cool about Discipline Priest is that you get to play with Atonement a lot more. It's pretty much almost all Atonement playstyle, especially if you play the Shadow builds. It's all full Atonement. The tier set really goes deep into casting a lot of smites, which obviously translates a lot into Atonement, which is what Discipline Priest does the best. Casting heals on your party is just boring. That's Holy Priest does that better. So Discipline is going to be a solid A tier. Super fun spec. I always loved Discipline, and I was surprised that taking all of these buttons that I used to have, Schism and Shadow Covenant, and I don't know if they took I mean, we don't have Power Word Solace anymore, but we haven't had that for a while. And you're not playing mind games anyway, so you have fewer buttons, but the playstyle just works. Things proc other things and things build off of other things, which is what I believe a good spec can do instead of just press this button, this happens, press this button, this happens, all isolated events off of from each other. It's like, it's more fun when it builds off of each other. And the healing is really good, dude. Listen, I'm telling you, I feel really good healing with discipline if I ever have to. Holy Paladin is tricky. Holy Paladin is probably, I want to say, the hardest healer to play in this list. I still have a mixed feeling between Holy Paladin and Preservation, and we're gonna get to Preservation eventually. I'm saying Holy Paladin is difficult to play because the baseline playstyle is fine. It's more complex than you might expect, and it is actually really engaging with the Glimmer, and the tier set is actually really cool. Playing all of the new builds for Holy Paladin with, I don't know if you're going to be playing this in 10.2, but I did play it on the PTR when I tested all of the healers. Tears Deliverance, Holy Prism, which I know a lot of people have really mixed feeling about it, but it's just another little mini cooldown that you can just press in between your wings, and I think that's actually pretty cool. But you're going to be playing, so these two, you're going to be playing, obviously, Divine Toll, which you're probably always going to have. Daybreak, now it works really cool. So you have 4 cooldowns, and you can actually build to a big burst moment if you play all of them. I don't know if that's the best way to play Holy Paladin. I mean, I played it in a 15 or 16 or whatever it was, and I did just fine. So you can probably take this style of playstyle even higher and higher in keys, but I don't know if that's going to be the way to go at the end of, you know, the plus 30s or whatever people are going to do by the end. I didn't feel like I needed to spam Crusader Strike as much, although you might have to later on into the game, and I did play with another Holy Paladin when I tanked a little bit on the PTR as well, and he was getting way bigger HPS numbers than I could be getting, so there's definitely a learning curve there to Holy Paladin that might put some people off, but I was surprised as to how good it was implemented and how fun it was. Not quite as fun as Discipline, but seeing as I normally am not a fan of Holy Paladin, the fact that it is not at the bottom of the tier list says a lot for the spec in terms of fun. I will put it, actually had a little bit more fun on Holy Paladin than Resto Shaman, and this is probably a first if I'm going to be completely honest. Although Holy Paladin has had good designs in the past, I never really enjoyed playing it more than Resto Shaman until today. Maybe that says something more about Resto Shaman than Holy Paladin. Similarly, Holy Priest as well. Listen, I've been giving healing in Dragonflight a lot of crap, and a lot of it is still deserved, but it has almost nothing to do with the actual specs themselves, but how things work outside of that. And we're gonna have a video on that eventually. Until then, be satisfied with the ranking, and Holy Priest once again has been surprisingly engaging. This has button blow. Listen, if you think other classes have button blow, this has button bloat. It's not as easy to get into. It's pretty straightforward in the way that it works. You know, HP bar is missing, put it back with a heal. That's pretty straightforward. However, it does feel like whenever I played more into Renew and Prayer of Mending spamming, which is these hots that take a while to kind of build up, that's when I had the best results in keeping my party alive. And to be fair, in terms of fun, what's really carrying Holy Priest is the tier set in terms of overall fun, which is great. That's definitely great for a 10.2 healer if you want to play it, but knowing that this will probably go away doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence in me into coming up kind of pick it like a main. I will probably alt it and I'll be just fine playing it. Not as fun as a Discipline Priest, but Holy Priest for 3 to 4 years has been my least favorite healer. Not a bad healer, not fun healer. The least, the bottom of the barrel, the worst of the worst. I did not like it. However, I am putting it into B tier as well. B tier is where all the healers are like, oh, I did not expect it to be this fun, or oh, it's a little bit disappointing that my favorite healer kind of dropped. This is kind of what B tier is. I think Holy Priest is probably, for people who really like Holy Priest, you're probably going to see it as something into like A or even S tier, because it's really fun. It's just not a playstyle that I usually vibe with. Feels a little bit bland, but not necessarily because of its bland, but also, you do have way too many buttons, man. Way too many mini heals that kind of do similar things to each other, like Circle of Healing. Why am I using also Circle of Healing when I have Prayer of Healing, when I have Sanctify? Why do I have both Renew and Prayer Mending when they kind of do the same, but not really? They just heal over time. Sure, the way that they heal over time is a little bit different. Why do I have Flash Heal, and Sanctify, and Power Word Life? All of these feel like, oh, you want this one thing? Let me give you this one thing in three different versions. Which I guess that's fine. I mean, it's probably better for a simple bland spec to have multiple tools to play with, but sometimes it's not really obvious which one I should be using if I have all of them available at the same time. So I kind of make a choice and it doesn't really work out all the time. But that's Holy Priest. Mistweaver Monk. Holy shit, is this the most fun healer I have ever played, at least in the last 4 years. I don't understand what they did to the spec, man. It is the most fun healer. Dude, this is... I had no plans on healing almost at all for the rest of the expansion. Now I'm considering this as a potential main. I'm probably not gonna main healer, but the fact that I was even for a split second thinking, dude, maybe I should main Mistweaver, just goes to show, for me at the very least, how fun this spec is. And probably depends on the build that you're playing, but I am playing with two of the things that I definitely did not think I was gonna have fun with, and one that I actively disliked, and it turned the spec around for me. This has been a trip of being proven wrong. So first of all, Shaylan's gift, I never really played with it in the past, and I was like, oh, just another button for Mistweaver. Why? Holy fuck, man, don't tell Blizzard how much healing this does, dude. I was one-shotting people's, well, you know, full healing people's from 0 with one cast, critting for 400 to 500k each person. That's over 2 million heals per one spell. Are you crazy? That's so good. And not only that, you have Feline Stomp, which obviously this has been the case for Dragonflight, but the fact that it activates Ancient Teachings and helps you Fistweave is so much better than Essence Font. I cannot tell you how much I disliked playing Essence Font with Fistweaving back in Shadowlands, and the fact that I also did not like Feline Stomp. I thought it was stupid. I thought it makes no sense for a Monk. Why is it so blue when pretty much everything on Monk is like turquoise or whatever, Turk. The little color, man. I don't know how they pronounce. Listen, English is not my main language. But it's fun when you slap the ground, it resets, you slap it again, it funnels into your Fistweaving. I never have to press Essence Font again, and thank God for that. And I also love Fistweaving. I love Rising Mist, and that's basically the build that I played with on the PTR, and it was so fun. If you want to play a healer that just heals, no bullshit, you just fill up HP bars and you want to have fun with it, you want to do it in a neat, interesting, out-of-the-box way where you just move all around, you slap the ground, you explode an AoE healing by just casting a simple spell that accumulates charges over time. Not to mention that the changes to Mana Tea have to be the most adorable things they've ever done for a healer. Now I get to actually drink it as I walk. Obviously, it's probably not as efficient as before, but now I just get to drink my tea while I walk and recover my mana. That is ridiculously adorable and might not be as efficient as before, but it is fun to watch. Mistweaver, hands down, most fun healer. But there are, of course, two left, and there's definitely very important things to say, especially with Preservation. Preservation has been a love-hate relationship for me because I did main it in the first patch of Shadowlands. It represented me putting my best foot forward towards the Dragonflight. It was my best foot forward putting it towards accepting Dragonflight and what it had to offer me, aka the new class. I've never made a healer before. I said, why not start with the new class, the new healer? And it was a trip to actually play. And once again, similar to Holy Priest, up until I played Preservation, and at the end of Season 1, I thought Holy Priest was my most disliked healer, and it ended up being Preservation. That aside, Preservation is much better designed, which, I mean, not necessarily surprising because it is a new class, and usually new classes when they're released, they're a little bit wonky until they, you know, they're kind of like fine-tuned and polished, and that's essentially what Preservation is now. However, similar to Holy Priest, I feel like a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of what makes it fun is the tier set once again. The tier set is just really cool to shoot out living flames. It is very satisfying. Not quite discipline satisfying, but way more satisfying than most other healers in B tier. And once again, this was a D tier. Why can I not put it in front of... There you go. This was a D tier. If you look at any of the previous tier lists and regarding in any way, shape or form what I think about either maining a spec, alting a spec, or how fun it is, Preservation was dead last in all of the lists, with Holy Priest following really close. So although maybe B tier might not say a lot to you, it does say a lot to me because they are 2 tiers higher. Not only are they 2 tiers higher, one of them, Preservation especially, is better than one of my most all-time favorite healers. So this says a lot. It's still not quite discipline level because I do feel like it's missing a little bit. I don't particularly enjoy the Echo playstyle as much because it doesn't feel as impactful. It is fun, but it felt cooler when it wasn't so mechanically nerfed. But I understand why it was nerfed. It was very, very overpowered at the beginning of the season, so that's fine. However, I do want to see more variety. It ended up that I just played the same preservation, even on PTR, that I played on live. Maybe the build will change when the patch launches out. I played a similar build that you played right now in Mythic Plus because it made sense with the tier set. The tier set didn't make me think that I needed to pick any other talents, which kind of sucks when you think about Resto Druid, for instance, the next healer on the list, that where it actively lets you take or makes you take Grove Guardians. And now we go to the last one. Dude, because of my hatred, despisement, like, sheer horror of healing in Dragonflight, I have neglected a lot of the healers. And similar to Resto Shaman, Resto Druid has always been one of my main healers that I always defaulted to and played. Now, I totally missed the mark when Grove Guardian was added as a talent. I probably saw it in some patch notes and when we did some videos, like, oh, alright, cool. You summon a tree and it heals. But then I stopped reading the spells, like, you summon a tree and it heals? What the fuck is that? And I always thought that whenever these types of mechanics happen, it was probably something similar to Balance when you summon the little Fade Dragon and it just shoots out little arcane balls, which is fine. It's perfectly fine actually if it does that, but you don't really, that's nothing. That's just a dot in the form of a pet that just happens to be next to you and shooting bolts at it. So I kind of thought that Grove Guardian was the same. It's not. It's not. And oh my god, does it feel fun to summon trees and you know what spells they do, especially if you take the talent, I forget what it is, this is all new to me. The talent that makes it also cast Wild Growth when you summon it. You can set up so many cool situations with Resto Druid that reminds me of the most fun I've ever had with Resto Druid, which was in BFA when I could just put HOTS on everybody and just go DPS for a little while. This is that, but way better. Not only do you get to play Grove Guardian and you have 3 charges of them, recharging every 20 seconds, and they can also cast Wild Growth while you also do all of your stuff. You can also Owl Weave and Cat Weave depending on what exactly you want, but the setup actually makes more sense. You can extend everything with Flourish and go into Owl form and shoot out Convokes, and that's essentially what I did when I played on the PTR. It was so fun. Oh, Convoke is back. 1 minute Convoke, because that was the build that I was playing. I don't know if this is the build that you're going to be playing in 10.2. This is the 10.1.7 build, but I had a lot of fun. I healed for a lot and I did decent amount of damage, because who doesn't want to be a chicken and fire Convoke? And listen, maybe chicken is not your thing, and maybe you're Marcelian watching the video, in which case, play a chicken, man. Just stop it. Just play a chicken. But you can also go Cat Weave, of course. There is an obvious downside that you don't really have access to the Typhoon and Ursals, and definitely not to Innervate if you do go Cat Weave. However, that is an option that you can get. You get a kick, which you might actually need, to be fair. You need kicks in the next season. You need so many kicks in the next season. Listen, if you thought you needed the kicks now, you obviously haven't played Throne of the Tides. But that aside, Resto Druid is giga fun. I will probably put it slightly in front of Discipline, and here's my reasoning. Discipline is mechanically more fun than Resto Druid. Resto Druid is flavorlessly more fun. You are essentially the master of the forest, and it's finally feeling like that's gonna be the case. All of the animations that have been built up towards Resto Druid, because this is part of the fun, at least for me, feels like I'm channeling the power of the forest. Sure, you had the Force of Nature spell for Balance where you just summon trends, but those were kind of the same thing. You just summon a bunch of trees there that just do their thing. But the healer ones, you actually get to see. They're actually next to you. You see active trees. It's ridiculous for trees to cast healing spells, but we're in World of Warcraft and we don't question such things. It is fucking fantastic, dude. I gotta say, this has been a surprising experience for me trying to play all of these healers, because I had zero, even low expectations of enjoying my time playing any of these, and seeing as how Mistweaver just took the cake out in front of everybody was definitely fun. So much fun that I'm probably just gonna be playing Mistweaver after I finish recording this video. But listen, you can play Mistweaver too. You can play whatever you want, and maybe you're not that interested in fun and you're kind of hoping that, you know, the spec that you play, especially DPS, is gonna be doing good. Now, we did have a prediction discussion a while back, which you can check in this video, where we talk about all of the DPS specs and what we think they're gonna be doing in the Mythic Plus next season. And maybe we're wrong, maybe we're not, but at least we have data.